a cup of tea.
Oh, you
Some,
mean after the session?
yeah, some dinner, but
Oh yeah,
tea.
yeah. No, I get what you mean, T. I just thought you meant now.
Nah, not a cuppa. Hang on. Okay, let's admit everybody. And we'll say hello. Hello, everybody. We'll give you all a minute to log in. Hang on, we've got more people joining us, which is fabulous. Hello.
Everyone's muted.
Everyone's muted today. Well,
Yeah.
let's give everyone a minute to just get in and get comfy. Hello. Hi, Scott. Hi, Nathan, for saying hello in the chats. Hi, everybody. Hope you're well on this Wednesday evening. It's been beautifully sunny in Sheffield today. Don't know what it's been like everywhere else. Let me just so hello everyone. Welcome to Ask Becky. There's a few regulars here that I can see, and there's a few new names that I've not seen yet. Welcome. This is a session where you are free to come and ask us anything. And it's a really lovely little community that we've built here. Everybody gets involved, and if you've got a qualifying test coming up, standards check coming up, you're having one of those days where you're thinking, oh my God, I could murder my learners. Whatever's going on, ask us your questions, get involved, and let's see if we can help a little bit. James says he is cooking dinner in the background, so he's muted, which is fabulous. No problem at all. So tonight we are joined by Lee again. Lee, this is your fourth session with us. Hello, how are you?
Is it really the fourth one?
Fourth session, yeah.
Hello,
Thank you
everyone.
for coming back. I'm just admitting everyone, there's still lots of people joining, which is really, really lovely. Somebody has me as their name, which is fabulous. Hello. Let me keep admitting people. So while we're waiting for everybody to come in, if anybody has any questions at all for myself or Lee, usually what we do is we both kind of give you some answer or some advice from our own perspectives. If you've got any questions at all, feel free to pop it in the chat, or you can unmute and ask anything, or if you want to message me privately, if you want to ask something anonymously, you are more than welcome to do that. We've still got loads of people coming in. Bear with me. Let me just keep adding them. So Lee, while we wait for some questions to come in then, I've had a couple sent to me that we'll come to shortly. How has your week been? How's your day been?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a hectic week. But yeah, it's been okay. It's been a good day. It's been sunny.
Been sunny
Everyone
where you
everyone
are?
everyone likes it. Makes a difference when it's sunny.
It really does, doesn't it? I heard on the radio, I think by the end of March, is the sun not gonna set till 8 p.m. or 7 p.m., something like that?
That's just mint, that, innit? It's so good. Like, especially when it's been going dark at like 4 o'clock. It's
It
pretty
is.
proper mint when it's like till late.
I think
Yeah, looking forward to that.
everyone just feels so much better when the sun is shining. And I've said it for years and I stand by it. I think I have seasonal affective disorder, but I wonder if that's just a British thing. I bet we all have that really. Okay, there we go. So if anybody has any questions, hello to everyone that's just recently joined us. If anybody has any questions at all, please pop them in the chat or you can unmute. We've had one from Nathan. Thank you, Nathan. You've got your part 3 tomorrow at 8 a.m. How exciting. Look at your face. Change that to a happy face, Nathan. It's good. It's exciting. Your learner's need is to improve looking for a gap at roundabouts. She nearly killed us last lesson. We have all been there. What is a suitable goal going to be for the lesson? You've got 5 roundabouts independently written down, but not sure if it's too vague. I'm using your chunking method, Lee. Amazing. How exciting. Right, go on then, Lee. You start us off.
Hello, Nathan. How are you doing? Um, I mean, the key thing is you're working on skills tomorrow. Yeah, so you're not working on roundabouts. You're working on a skill, and that skill is judgment. Um, so that's a skill that can be worked in loads of places. So it can be worked on at one end at busy roundabouts. It can be worked on at the other end when moving off at the side of a road with traffic coming from behind. Judgment is judgment. Yeah. So make sure you're not wrapped up too much in roundabouts because you can work on judgment at roundabouts, but you can work on judgment in other places as well. The question that you asked about the goals, what are a suitable goal? I'd say goals are kind of like stepping stones. So what is the reason that they are struggling to, and you might need to unmute here so I can actually speak to me. What is the reason why they're struggling to take the gaps?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, what my question is, why are they struggling to, why are they struggling to miss gaps?
So I'm not too sure because she was doing really well at mini roundabouts, and it's mainly mini roundabouts. She was aware of the signals that other cars are putting on, and then assessing, oh, they're turning left on our right, so she's able to go. Then all of a sudden, sometimes she won't go for it, so it's inconsistent. And then the other day, she just went for it when there was a motorbike. I mean, he was speeding, to be fair, but there was a motorbike and I had to dual control, and that was how we left the lesson. So
yeah, I mean, the goals will depend on what's causing it. So that's what you need to get to the bottom of before it starts, before you test it.
So it's
So
the decision making, I think, is the problem.
yeah, I mean, because the reason why I say that is sometimes it can be, do you teach manual or automatic?
Manual.
Yeah, sometimes it can be that, and I only noticed that when I taught someone in automatic after teaching someone in teaching manual for like 15 years. I did one person in automatic and I couldn't believe how good they were at judging gaps at roundabouts. It blew my mind. How can they be that good after like 10 hours? And that's when it dawned on me that one of the issues that causes hesitancy at roundabouts is people's lack of confidence in their ability to make that car get moving quick without making it stall.
Right.
So if that's causing it, then you've got to work on that. And your goals will be based on that control element of coordinating the gas and the clutch together. On the flip side, it could also be caused by not looking in the right place, early enough. So it could be like a lot of learners that when your learner arrives at the roundabout, they're looking to the right and they're transfixed on that. So they're not noticing those blockers that they can use from straight ahead. They're not
Yeah.
noticing that traffic coming from the left that's
Yeah, just
indicating
like
right that we could use as well.
David forgot to add a meeting.
So it could be then that that's where your goals are going to be. So if it's like an observation thing that's lead causing the problem, then one goal might be and are they missing the chances on approach, on the move on approach, or is it when they stop and then they're missing chances after they've stopped?
No, so I mean, it really depends. Sometimes on a roundabout with poor visibility, they're approaching slowly, and then they're sort of coming to a stop when potentially they didn't need to. But then there's another sort of roundabout that's quite a big one, and they'll approach it, and you've got such good visibility, and it's obvious where the cars are going, but they're waiting because the cars aren't signaling because they're going straight across. She's then concerned that she doesn't trust the no signal, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So she waits for them to signal off, which most of the time they don't. So then she's there for ages. I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
let's go.
That could be kind of like an approach thing is maybe planning earlier. So, one of the goals on approach is to look for stuff that we can use as blockers. And then another goal might be to time our arrival at the roundabout so we can go across at the same time as the blocker and be thinking about whether we can go or not before we get there.
Right.
Because sometimes when it comes to roundabouts, learners will have that kind of T-junction mindset, which is let's stop and have a look.
Yeah.
But obviously, if that's what your learners applying at a roundabout, that's how you get rear-ended.
Yeah, and I've explained, roundabouts are there to keep the flow of traffic moving, etc.
Yeah.
And then she'll do amazing for 5 roundabouts, and then it's like a regression. So
Yeah. I mean, like we said when we've done our sessions together, is that you've just got to teach in the moment and react to what's happening. So
yeah,
put a plan together for the first 10 or 15 minutes, with a suitable level of help that's going to get it working. And then if it's working, then you need to adapt it and you need to
sure.
give the learner more responsibility and you need to let them, take more off you. and just do a chunk of that, and that will either work or it won't. And if it doesn't, then put some help back in, But it's just trial and error. Just try it, reflect on it, adapt it, repeat, and just keep trying different things. It might be that she might need a talk through with it. She might need that where you're saying, right, we've got that oncoming car that he's not signaling, so we're going to use him as a blocker so you can keep going, and use a talk through to let your learner see it working.
Yeah.
Because that's really only the benefit of talk through is let them see it working. They're not really learning anything by being talked at, but getting them to see it working might be that step in the right direction, and then it might work with that.
And then reduce the help.
But just react to what's happening. That's always the key. Is have a plan. Your plan should be to change your plan, and when other things happen, and you should always anticipate that could be the case, like braking problems, gear problems, mirror problems. Just react to what's happening and teach in the moment.
Sure. Thank you.
I agree with Lee there. We're not going to be able to fix the thing that's going wrong if we don't know why it's going wrong. So you mentioned that it was a bit inconsistent as well. Sometimes she's all right and she can come up to it okay. Sometimes she'll just come up and stop. See if you can find out what it is about that one right there at that moment, at that time, that's meaning that she's not able to judge that one. And maybe check her knowledge and understanding on how she's judging as well. So she's mentioned, well, they're not signaling, so I'm not going because I don't trust it. Well, we use signaling, we use their speed, and we use their position to help us know what others are doing. And we give that information out to tell others what we're doing. So is she okay with knowing that if that's the info that we give out to tell others what we're doing, that's also the info that she needs to be taking from these other vehicles to know what to do off that. So yeah, I think it definitely is trial and error. And like Lee said, there could be loads of things. It could be that she's got that T-junction thing where she thinks, right, well, there's my giveaway lines. I've got to get there first and then decide. But actually, we know a roundabout starts, 4 miles back from the second we can see it's a roundabout. That's when we start looking at it and going, okay, nothing's crossing the roundabout. This one's looking pretty clear. Oh, there's a car there. I'm just going to ease off the gas. Oh, no, it's clear again. I can go. We start doing that way back. So it might be that you might want to have a little game with her as you approach it, with you kind of talking her through how you can play the yes no game, which is quite a common game in our industry. As you're approaching it, just simply saying yes and no. Yes, I can go right now. And it doesn't mean that you're going. It means based off the information that's crossing in front of you, that's coming towards you. Yes, I could go. There's nothing there. Oh, no, I can't go now. Something's crossed. Yes, I can go now. And that could help her with her judgment as she's coming up to it as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. If you need anything else before tomorrow morning, me and Lee are both available tonight. Well, I'm just speaking for you, Lee, but we're both available tonight.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. James K, you are next to ask a question. Feel free to unmute and ask away.
Hi there. Hi, Becky Lee. First of all, Nathan, all the best for tomorrow. I'm sure you'll do well. Yeah, so I have been an instructor for 12 years, 9 years of manual, and then transitioned to automatic about 3 years ago. And I was speaking to other people in my driving school about this. And it was kind of a question for you two, but also maybe the group. Have people noticed over the last 5-6 years, maybe it could be to do with COVID, students seem to be a bit more anxious than normal, or maybe anxious isn't the right word, but sensitivities would maybe be a better word. Making the transition from manual to automatic, I obviously saw that difference anyway, because a lot of people go to automatic because they've tried manual, it wasn't for them, or for some reason. But is this a thing like people are noticing across the country with students, especially maybe younger students? Is it something that we're finding, or?
I'm nodding my head because I'm saying yeah. I have been an instructor pre and post COVID, and I think post COVID there was a change in drivers in general. I think not just learner drivers, but when we were all locked down and we were all really relaxed and calm, we could all go back to work, and everyone was in a mad rush. And driving for me since COVID has been horrendous. I think the quality of drivers on the road is shocking. Everybody's in a rush, and I think learners get treated really badly. And I think that's led to learners being a little bit more anxious, and with, more TikTok videos, these dash cam videos, this is what can happen on the road. I think all of that, the social media can make it worse. I think the social media pressure in your friendship group. So if I've got my test tomorrow, oh, well, this happened on my test. Oh, well, now I'm petrified even more because I'm hearing more stories and stuff. I do think I think it's hard as a learner. It's hard as a PDI, it's hard as an ADI, but it's also hard as a learner at the minute. Yeah. What do you think, Lee? And then everyone else after Lee.
Yeah, I think there has been a noticeable difference. I mean, I often use that phrase when I'm doing my Zooms that the the 17-year-olds with beards that are getting in your car now are the 13-year-olds that were told they can't go to school and they can't socialize. And those kids are now 17. It's been half a decade since then this week. So they're obviously going to suffer from those things. But I think the key thing is if you're coaching people, you will always pitch the lesson based on them. I think the way we used to do this job is we used to fit learners into our style. We used to teach them in the way that we like to teach. We used to have there was a lot less fluidity, and it was very kind of, this is what we're going to do today, and this is how we're going to do it. So if you're designing the lesson around their needs and their confidence and their competence and what they like and what they don't like, then there shouldn't really be that problem. You'll only get anxieties and stress and panic when they're being allowed to bite off more than they can chew. So that's why client-centered learning is ideal for that, because if you're basing the lesson around them and what they need and their and maybe not being as ambitious with them, and you're allowing them to drag you along at their pace rather than you dragging them along at their pace, then that means that you should always make sure the lesson fits that person, and that helps minimize that problem. But has it changed? Yeah, it has. But there's ways of dealing with it, and I think if we make sure that we are tailoring these lessons to these people and making sure we're teaching in the way that meets their needs, then it minimizes it massively.
Thank you.
What about everyone else? Has anybody else noticed in the past few years learners are absolutely petrified, a bit more nervous? You're having to deal with nerves more as an instructor? What do we reckon? Yep, go on, Dave. Thank you. Oh, there you go.
Well, I would say I'm only PDI. Start going around again. So I've only had it recently, but most of my learners, I would say, are very nervous. And I would say that anxiety is a big thing. So much so I'm doing Diane's course next week.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I would say it is a big thing, and people come up to me at work saying, "Oh, my kid's really nervous about having lessons and that sort of thing." So I think it is a big thing. I've not seen it before because I wasn't there then. In my day it was get on with it, but that was an awful long time ago. But yeah, no, most of my learners do come under the very nervous category, I would say. Even in their real life, apart from just rather than just driving, to the point, sometimes you got to spend 10 minutes talking to them just to convince them to move away. But they're like that in their normal life, and there's a lot of that around, I think.
I mean, I think sometimes it can be a mixture of different types of fear, and when you go on Diane's course, she'll be talking to you about irrational fear and where irrational fear comes from. But there's also rational fear as well, and rational fear comes from being in charge of a machine that we can't control. So if you have a learner who's walking down the high street on a busy shopping day, loads of people coming towards them, they're not going to be anxious because they can stop, they can move, they can slow down, speed up, no problem. But put them on a road with parked cars on both sides, now panicking because we're in charge of a car that maybe it's not going to stop where we want it to stop, and maybe we can't make it steer where we want it to steer, and maybe it'll go faster than we want it to go. And if we're putting learners into these subjects when they don't have the skills that they need to be in these subjects, then that's going to breed that anxiety as well. So sometimes it can be rational fear, and so where we're not in control of this car, and oh my God, I can't make it do what I want. And sometimes, like Diane will go through with you next week, is where irrational fear comes from, and kind of flooding the body with adrenaline and cortisol when it shouldn't really be there, where the brain has kind of been tricked into being scared. But we need to make sure we're building these learners up brick by brick, so that when they're in subjects, and we're all really guilty of this sometimes, is moving them into areas, moving them onto subjects when they don't have the skills to do them. Like trying to get them to emerge from a T-junction where they have to use clutch control at the same time as doing steering. If they might be able to do one or the other, but if they can't do both, then you've not got a T-junction problem, you've got a clutch, and you've got a hands and feet clutch and steering problem. But sometimes we push learners into subjects that they don't yet have the skills to do. So if we build up their skill set first, we can then use those skills in subjects where those skills are required, and it lowers that fear and that panic and that anxiety.
I think I just saw in the chat, Sally said, is it more acceptable to express our anxieties today? And I think that's a really good point. Like I find, I don't know about the rest of you, but sometimes I almost feel like a counsellor in the car as well. Students end up just opening up to you. I had a student last week, a young 17-year-old young lady, asked her to turn right at the roundabout. She signalled left on approach, and I just pointed out, so we signal up. So that was all I said, was signal right. Didn't say it in any stern tone. As soon as we came off the roundabout, she burst into tears. And I was like, oh my God, like, are you okay? If I said, did I say anything wrong? But it turns out she's studying for her exams, and just the stress. And it was just that little thing, it's like a game of Buckaroo, that one little thing pushed her over the edge. So, yeah, I do feel, I think it's definitely good that they're more open about their anxiety and that, and that if they can feel that they can talk to us about it, to me, that's a big win, personally.
I agree. I think it's so good.
Sorry, Becky,
The fact that kids can. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'll shut up in a second. I'll just put this out there. Have we got better at noticing people with anxiety as well?
Yeah.
Are we more sensitive to noticing it than we used to be? I think that's a factor as well.
I was going to say, Dave mentioned, he said like many years ago it was different when he learned to drive. But I learned to drive 20 years ago. I passed my learner test. And I remember my instructor, Gary, I've talked about him before on Ask Becky, and Gary would do something and he'd go, right, Becky, swap, you do it. And I'd go, okay. And it didn't matter how I felt. I just had to do what Gary told me to do. And, if I'd have had a bad day at sixth form, or I was mad at my mum, or I was annoyed because I had work later on, it didn't matter. I was there to learn, and that was all that Gary cared about. I think learners these days have got so much more pressure with social media and just the COVID, so many factors, but bloody hell, they've got better instructors, haven't they? The fact that all of us are here wanting to be the best we can be and help them and listen to them and be on their side, how great is that? That is such a good point. And the fact that we're all here wanting to talk about it and be the best that we can and do things like go on Diane's course and help them and be empathetic towards them is incredible. I certainly didn't get that. And a month after I passed my test, I hit 2 cars in a car park because Gary had never explained to me how to park in between cars in a standard car park. We did it in an empty space, empty car park with nothing around for miles. Whereas now we do things like that. We take them to these places where they might feel a bit nervous because that's real life. And I think, yeah, it might be harder now for the learners, but boy, isn't it good that they've got us. So that's a good point. Hopefully that helps, James.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Deborah, you are next to ask a question. Hello, good evening.
Hello. And apologies, Lee, because every so often I send in WhatsApp messages asking questions. I've watched his turning defeat into glory about 6 times over, which is great. I absolutely love it. But most of my questions come from, so I'm teaching for free, PDI, only got to about 4 students. And it's this one blesser that I sort of tend to have all my questions that come from. So she, for one better way of putting it, she just seems to be quite slow at picking everything up. So she's great, she's capable, but it seems to, obviously I'm no expert, but it takes her quite a long time to get the hang of anything. And she's lovely and she tries really hard. So I've been sort of using the chunking method, trying to just make sure I've also got the skills, not topics, I think it's called, and lots of other things. So I'm really trying to work on her skills. So I'm really not pushing on. I've done probably 15 hours with her, and we're not sort of yet doing junctions or anything like that. But what do you do when you're working on a skill that you genuinely feel you've really stripped back to the most basic thing that it can be in the most simple, safe car park or whatever, and it's still a struggle? Do you just keep doing it more? If they're happy, do you just keep going, do you want to go again? Do you want to go again? And then asking them about it, asking if they want a demo, do you just keep, because I know, Lee, you always say if you do what you did, you get what you got.
Always get what you always got.
Yeah, but what if they're genuinely really struggling and they're quite happy, but they're, yeah, does that make sense? So I'm trying to really follow your stuff, Lee, and then I kind of think, am I don't know.
Can you give
sense.
an example? Like, what were you thinking about when you were saying that? What was the thing that you were thinking about?
I think, just things. Even when we're in the car park doing braking, it would be over and over again that she kind of she tried to brake to a point, and she'd done it a couple of times, but then she would then do 5-6 goes, she'd be nowhere near her target. So we'd go around all the different things, you know, shall I do the clutch? And even if she was just then, say, just doing the braking, it could be we've done it so many times, but yet it's still not quite. And then she'd do it really sharp loads of times, or she'd get it on point, but then it'd be too sharp, or the other way around. So you just kind of think, we've probably done this 20
Zoom calls are freeing, is that? I forgot about it.
Ooh. That wasn't my voice.
Oh, no.
So you're just kind of going and going again, and you kind of reach the point of, am I doing the right thing by doing it like that? I don't know. So you feel it's quite basic, and yet it's still a struggle for her.
I mean, practice takes perfect. That makes perfect. That's, you know, important. But I think you're talking about stripping it back there, but that would suggest that you've already moved on. You know, so when you're sort of following that, if you're looking at braking first, which is just coming to a progressive stop. So like you said, you can make the car go, you can put the clutch down, just let them practice making it, you know, coming to a progressive stop and learning through trial and error, which is where that kind of conversation comes in, you know. So like we said, if they brake too hard, then ask them why they think it braked too hard and what the risk would be of that. And what could we do differently in light of that when we try it next time? And then they'll say, well, I suppose I need to press it softer than the first time. So let's try that. Let's see what happens. And we're always looking for outcomes. So if you can get to that point where it's working, there's no point trying to do other things while it's not there. And it shouldn't really take really 5, 6, 7, 8, you know, attempts. It should be pretty quick. But once we've got that braking down, then we can start adding other things. Because if they can't progressively brake, why would you try and get them to stop accurately, for example? Or if you're in a manual car, if they can't progressively brake with just the brake, why would you try and get them to use the clutch at the same time? You know, let's focus on that thing and get that first building block in place where they can gently brake. And then the next challenge would be using the clutch and brake. And then the next challenge would be using the clutch and brake and then trying to stop somewhere accurately and just kind of building it up like that. But it just takes practice. You know, there is no right and wrong with it.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to do. So I spent 6 hours with her in total in a big car park. So it was like literally and there were 90 minutes lessons. So the first 90 minutes was literally just braking. So it was me doing the clutch and her braking. Yeah. And I've had lots of people since, well, not lots of people, I've only got 4 people, but I've had people since who pick these things up really quickly.
Yeah.
But then it seems so, you know, and when we do slowly move on with something, it's then that new thing equally takes ages for her to. I'm fine with it, as in I'm very accepting of it, but it's just, I don't know.
It's probably if all of your learners were like that,
live.
Yeah.
It's probably you. It's probably a you thing. But if all the other ones pick it up really quickly and move on really quickly, and this one isn't, then maybe it's them rather than, maybe you're pointing, you're looking at yourself, but, but you have a conversation with them, why, and then try and get to the bottom of why that's happening. So if they keep breaking harsh, why do you do it? And they might say something, they might be a bit on edge. Because, if you're a bit on edge, you tend to be a little bit like, whoa, like you've had loads of coffees. So why are we like that? What's the thought process that's making us like that in this non-judgmental environment, in this consequence-free environment? Why are we on edge? And maybe if we relax more in that sense, then our touching of the pedals might relax. So I'd want to speak to that person and really find out what they're thinking.
Yeah, and she's great, and she does really chat to me. So I kind of feel like I don't know. I sort of almost feel I'd know if there was something there. She's the daughter of a friend, and she like chats really. She's lovely. She's really polite. She's really nice. But yeah.
What do you think, Becky?
I think when you started telling us about this, Deborah, you said, I'm no expert. I think I'm doing skills over subjects. The thing is, none of us are experts on our pupils. They're experts on themselves. And you said, you spent 90 minutes in a car park doing braking. How much of those 90 minutes is she actually focusing on braking? Has she got other stuff going on during that 90 minutes that means her brain space is taken up somewhere else while she's thinking about something else? All our learners will learn individually. And like Lee said, if this was happening with every pupil, it would then be a you thing. And we could help you with that, with it being a you thing. But if this is just a her thing, then that's okay that it's a her thing, because they all learn differently. And as long as she's happy with what progress she feels she's made at the end of it, and you feel like she's going away feeling good, her confidence is up there, and she feels like she's learning, then you're doing what's best for her right there and then in that moment. If you do think, well, I know the rest of mine kind of get it a bit more than this, so maybe I'll give her something else. What that could do for her, depending on how she processes things and how she learns, that could actually, overwhelm her. And then the thing that she's been progressing at her slow pace, she might then start to lack. And then she goes away from the lesson feeling like, oh, bloody hell, that just went totally crap. I don't feel good about myself. So I think stick with what you're doing if it's working for her, for that pupil. And don't worry if they're not all at the same pace, because they won't be. That's the point of them. They won't be.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm just so glad I'm giving her free lessons, because bless her, I think it would cost her a fortune otherwise. So at least she's got time to use my free lessons.
Bless her.
what you're doing there is the right thing, because we talked about like isolating stuff, so like just work on braking and don't put other plates, don't spin too many plates, because the more plates that they're spinning, then the more plates you're spinning. It's hard work for both of you. But if you are trying to brake, and she might get frustrated with it, so it might be a good idea. Well, let's put that down and just pick up a different plate, like steering. Just focus on, putting the steering on, taking it off, doing like figures of 8 around the car park, maybe. If you could just forget about the bloody pedals for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's just focus on that. And that frustration with the braking, they might go away. They might feel really good because the steering's working out really well. We try the braking as well, and all of a sudden, oh, it's working. But just try it. Just try things. That's what our job is. Our job is experiences followed by conversations, followed by more experiences, followed by more conversations. That's all it is.
Brilliant. Thank you both.
Thank you, Deborah. We had a question in the chat, but you guys have done really well answering. Is it Paige? Any suggestion with helping a student go into third gear? My student keeps going into first. Tried different ways holding the stick, practicing stationary. So you guys have recommended into neutral, then third. That's a really good way. It's a little bit like what Lee just said. It's trial and error. Let's see what works for them. Usually when pupils are popping it into first, is because they're rushing it. They're not paying attention too much. So popping back into neutral, then pushing it up again, that can work. Whatever works for them. We've got Scott. You've said a lot of the problems you get is on the spiral roundabouts. Old drivers just don't do it, so my learners try to copy them. Scott, I'm trying to find your name, Scott. Do you want to unmute, Scott, and tell us more about that? Do you want any advice on that? Do you want to chat to everyone about that? Is Scott still here? I can't see Scott's name then. Well, Scott might have gone. Never mind. Well, Scott, if you watch this on YouTube, we came to you, but you've gone. Sally, we've covered you. Oh, you're okay. No, that's fine. Lovely, no problem, Scott. Deborah, Scott also put, because it's your friend's daughter. Are they focused on a conversation, a chat that you're having, or are they thinking about the next lesson? Something like that. Maybe they're thinking about personal stuff, or who knows? Okay, thank you, everyone. So we've come to the end of the questions. If anybody's got any more questions, keep bringing them in, and we'll use the next couple of minutes while we wait for more questions to tell you what me and Lee have been up to recently. So Lee, over to you to plug.
Well, yeah, I just launched a national driving school today called Learn a Doctor. So it's really trying to give people the hybrid experience, because a lot of people go with national franchises because that you'll get learners and they'll manage your diet, you know, for the reasons why people go independent, but also people go independent because they want to be independent. They want to have their their sign on their name on the roof, name on the car. So it's kind of like a hybrid. So the idea is that you run your own business, you have your own branding, you have your driving school being promoted as you drive around. And in the background, we do all the other bits, like find your learners and do online diary management and have a call center. So it's kind of like the hybrid of the two is the idea. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. I believe you've been doing something very similar, actually, Becky.
So I am just going to pop both of our links in the chat very, very quickly. So bear with me because I can't type that fast. So as Lee has just mentioned his national driving school, I think I was probably about a week and a half before you. However, me and Lee are both working towards the same cause. I also launched a national driving school, empathetic driving school. And the point is exactly like what Lee said, it's to help people and to kind of revolutionize the word franchise in our industry. If you go onto any face group and type, search the word franchise, you're going to come up with a load of comments and posts on, I don't feel supported. I don't feel like my training's up to scratch. I feel let down. Well, we're just going to try and change that, I think, aren't we? And we're two very different schools. However, we are very much working together to just help as many people as possible. So if anybody here is thinking of joining a franchise, signing with anyone, just know what your options are first. You don't have to get signed to a big national kind of school and think you're stuck, which is the hardest position for a lot of PDIs to be in. As well as that, me and Lee run a lot of workshops. You can always find them on PDIADI.com. Okay, so let's go back to the chat. You tried going neutral, then third, slowed the process down. It doesn't work. He tends to push it at an angle, the gear stick. Tried to get him to push up towards the radio and not towards my feet. Any other tips? Oh, okay, I'm with you, Paige. So it's not working. So going into neutral and then into third. Is that what you mean? That it's not working, trying that?
Yeah, so everything I've tried doesn't work. It works on every other student I've got, but this one particular student, it can do it stationary, but the moment the car moves, it's like he doesn't know what up is anymore. He just kind of goes off to the side. So I try and help him. I've tried doing the gearbox with him. So I'll hold the bottom halfway, he's holds the top. Doesn't work. He kind of fights me. I've tried holding the steering wheel so he doesn't have to think about steering at the same time. That didn't work. I've tried a quiet long road, so we just keep going up down the gears. He can go from third to second, but he can't go second to third. No matter what he does, it always ends up in first. And I'm kind of out of ideas, and the students getting frustrated now. So I don't know what else to do.
I mean, I've had that for a long time when I used to teach learners, and it all stems from not being in neutral. So it is harder to go into third from neutral than it is to go into third. And quite often learners, when they want first, they go into third by mistake because it's when they're preparing the car and stuff. So Is your learner actually going into neutral and letting go of the gear stick in neutral?
Yes. Yes. So I said you can use like the palm of your hand, you just push it up so it lands in neutral and then push it up again. So the car does the work for you.
Yeah.
And that still doesn't work because he pushes it at an angle.
But that would be two movements, wouldn't it? So they must be pushing it left and up.
Yeah, so they're pushing it up and then they're going left. So what he does, he goes to the left.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing the right thing because you're trying different things, and that's all you can do. If you keep trying the same thing, it's going to stay the same, isn't it? So, yeah, that's a tricky one, that one, because normally that's normally the problem. You know, if they can find neutral, then they can't really miss third when they push it from underneath. So yeah, I mean, just keep doing what you're doing, just keep trying different things, but. You know, that's all you can do really. But would you recommend anything else, Becky, other than sort of finding neutral and then just pushing it up from underneath? Because it's so hard. It's harder to go into first and fifth once you're in neutral. Because I think sometimes if they're holding the gear stick, that's often the problem. Because it can't spring back into the middle because they're holding it. But if we just knock it out a gear into neutral, then it would take two moves to go into fifth or first. It just, bop, bop. Yeah.
You mentioned that your pupil can do it stationary, but they're not on the move. And obviously you've taken them to really, really quiet places and stuff. Have you asked him what the why he thinks it's working when he's still and why it's not working when you're moving?
I did. He said it's because he can look at it, which is why I then took away the steering element of it. So I thought, right, if you need to stare at it when you're doing it and take your time, then I'll steer the car while you then look at the gearbox, so you can get the hang of it, and then we can start bringing that responsibility back to you as you get comfortable. Yeah, that didn't work. The moment the car moved, no, it didn't work.
Right. So I think we're all in agreement here. The best method is out of gear into gear. You also mentioned that when he's still, he understands what up means, but then when he's moving, he doesn't understand what up means. You could try asking him to name it might be that second and third doesn't work, or neutral and up doesn't work. Maybe he needs a different way. So it could be push, push, push again. I don't know. He could start singing Salt and Pepper, Push It Real Good, whatever's going to work for him. You could ask him if he can rename the bits and bobs when he's still and see if he can come up with something. Other than that, he might need an automatic car. You never know.
Yeah.
Dave, you've got your hand up. Feel free to give us some advice.
The only other thing I can think of is, obviously, it sounds like you tried most of them, but another way of holding the gear lever, I don't know if this is going to work on the camera or not, but sort of like spread your hand like that and actually push with the bit in between the fingers and thumb, so you're not actually holding the gear stick. So you're not. It can only really go in one direction then. But obviously, it's it sounds like you've tried most of the ways of holding the gear stick, but just push with the bit of skin between your thumb and your fingers. It's just something else to try.
Yeah, I'll give that one a go, because I've tried the bottom of your palm here, and I've tried doing it upside down. I can't do it in this angle because its camera's too high, but using like the bottoms of my fingers and pushing it up that way, neither of them worked. So I asked him to see if he could find his own way of doing it, and he changes his mind every single time. He can't make up his mind which one he prefers. But yeah, I'll try the in between the finger and the thumb. That might be a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. That's good.
I've had a question come through directly to me, which is, if we've got a learner who's struggling with their mirrors on approach to junctions, can we take the responsibility of mirrors off them so they can focus on the other stuff? So how would you do that, Becky? Would you take the mirrors off them so they could focus on the approach, or would you do it the other way where, I mean, how would you do it?
It would depend on what the other stuff is that they're struggling with. If they are struggling with judgment on a junction, I'd be focusing on mirrors first over judgments, because we need our awareness skills in place to then do judgment. if they are struggling with actually just controlling the car in general, then I would absolutely take awareness off them, let them focus on what they're doing in the car and making sure that the car works. I can do the awareness for them so that they can focus on inside the car, what they're doing with their hands and their feet and making it work. Now, when I say I'd take it off them, it doesn't mean that I'd just sit there silent and I'd do the mirrors without telling them. I'd certainly explain what I could see, point things out to them and say, this is why we're going to do X, Y, and Z with the car control. But it depends on what skill was undermining the mirrors, or if the mirrors was undermining another skill. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Go on,
mean,
Lee.
I think sometimes, again, it's a bit like what we were saying with Nathan, is we need to find out why it's happening. So if their approach speed is too fast, then that will be why they're missing the
Yeah,
mirrors.
he's popped in the chat that it is speed on approach that's the problem.
So that's, why we're missing our mirrors. Is it because we don't know what mirrors we need to check? Is it because we don't understand why we need to check them? Is it because our attitude is it's only mirrors and, a fault, it's only a fault and I get 15 faults and that's one, so I don't care? Or is it because he hasn't got bloody time to do it? So the suggestion there of taking the mirrors off them while we focus on getting this approach speed right, well, that makes so much sense, doesn't it? Because if we get the speed on approach right, and we're looking at the junction earlier and we're slowing down and picking a speed that's appropriate for that junction, and we've then got more time because we've slowed down earlier, then naturally we're going to have more time to then put the mirrors back in as well. So I think if it was that, it would make sense, is to, like Craig has said, start MSPSL earlier, slow down earlier. That if we do that, then we'd have more time. And if the reason why we're missing the mirrors is that we haven't got time, and that's why it's always important to investigate and ask questions to find out what the learner thinks. Because as soon as learners say anything about time, then it's always approach speed that's the problem. It's always their speed. Because, I always use the example of my mum when she got a dog, a big dog, and she's quite elderly now and frail. And it used to take her for walks. Do you know what I mean? It pulled her around. And I always use that as an example, that if the car is going too fast, then it's you that's making it do that. Do you know what I mean? And if we control the car, if we have, the essence of control is we can make the car do exactly what we want. And if we haven't got time to do stuff, then it's because we're too fast. And how can you give yourself more time would be the question you would ask your learner. And obviously they'll say, well, I suppose I could be a bit slower on approach. And then we can put a plan together to work on that. But often anything to do with time is going to be speed related.
And it's really important to mention as well that the faults, the thing that you've noticed that's gone wrong is that they've missed a mirror check, but that's the effect. The cause is because they're too fast. It's always specifically for anyone that's got their tests coming up, if you're noticing your pupil is doing something, there's a reason why they're doing it. There's a something underlining. I sat in the back of a PDI's car recently, and they wanted me just to observe how they were with the pupil. And the PDI correctly acknowledged that the pupil was too fast approaching junctions. And he started to talk with the PDI about when they should start braking. However, the reason why they were too fast is because they were putting their clutch down half a mile away, and so that their brake was now less effective. But they hadn't realised that that was the cause of the effect that was then showing and happening. So if your pupil is making mistakes, oh, we've missed a mirror. Okay, I'll fully talk you through mirrors for 3 junctions. Now I'll prompt you, now I'll independent. That might just put a plaster on it. We need to know why they've missed a mirror, missed a signal, put a late signal on, sped too fast, wrong gear, whatever it is that's going on. We need to know why, because if we know why, we can then fix it. That makes sense.
The follow-up question there in the chat, is, and this because the part 3 is tomorrow.
Ooh, excited.
And what they've said there is exactly what they need to do. So you're exactly on the right lines. But the thing is about the plan for tomorrow is it's not something you can make. This is why when we talked privately earlier, I was talking about speak to your learner, because we need to have a conversation in place where we ask them, exactly what you said to us. You know, would it make it easier for you to focus on your approach speed if I did the mirrors? Would that help you? How long should we try it like that? So because the examiner is expecting to see a client-centered plan, it needs to be agreed by two people who exactly wants to do what. And what you're working towards this solution of fixing their approach speed, but maybe the learner wants you to take the mirrors off them, or maybe they don't. And you know, that's not a conversation for us, it's a conversation between you and your learner making a plan before you go to the test center.
Absolutely. We had a question a little while ago. I'm just going to come back to it. Bloody asked, what would you say if your pupil said, I'm okay with this, I don't need any more practice, teach me something else? Lee, what would you say if your pupil said, I'm okay with this, I don't need any more practice, teach me something else?
Well, that's the beauty of this kind of experiential learning cycle of trying something in search of an outcome. You know, will it work the way we're trying it or will it not? We don't know. So if your learner wants to try it on their own, that's fine and that's good. It's good that they want to do that. You know, that should not be discouraged. But let's try it and see if it works. And it'll either work or it won't. And if it doesn't work, then that option is off the table. And then we're going to put some help in place to make it work because it's not working independently. You know, likewise, if you're trying it with prompts and it's working, there's no value in doing it with prompts anymore because we know it works with prompts. What is the other outcome we don't have? The outcome of does it work with prompts? We have that. But does it work without prompts? Well, we don't know. Well, let's try it. Let's see what happens. So it's absolutely fine for the learner to want to try it independently. But you know, it's not a case of good or bad or better or worse. It's what is the outcome we want and did we get the outcome we got? Or if we didn't, how are we going to adapt that to help them get to that outcome? So it takes the judgmental side of it out of it and it's did we get the outcome we wanted? If we did, we move on. And if we don't, then what can we do to change it so we do get the outcome we want?
Yeah, I would agree. I think if your pupil is saying, I'm okay with this, I don't need any more practice, teach me something else, it would depend on what you think as well. You know, if they've just nearly killed you, but they're now saying, I don't need any more practice on this, I'm all right, let's move on. You're going to have a conversation with them to convince them, to get them to buy into the fact that actually these are the skills that we need to work on right now. And if you think, actually, do you know what, we're at a level where maybe we could investigate something else, like Lee says, let's try something, let's play with something else, let's see if that can benefit the skill that we've just been looking at or whatever, and have a go exploiting different skills. If that's okay for them, then that is absolutely fine. I am lost in the chat, bear with me. How can I make sure I'm identifying the correct need based on the student's fault? Today on my failed part 3. Oh, I'm really sorry, Becky, you've failed a part 3 today. I noticed a problem. The student and I discussed and identified that speed on approach was leaving them with not enough time to make a decision. After we worked on this on the way back to the test centre, I realised the issue was not resolved and noticed it was more based on their judgment. I talked about this in the debrief, but the examiner noticed the need to work on judgment from the beginning. How can I develop my ability to notice the underlying need quicker during lessons? Brilliant question, and I'm really sorry that you had a fail today. Was it your first attempt, Becky?
Yeah, it was my first attempt.
Your first attempt. How are you feeling now?
Yeah, I feel quite positive because everything else was really good feedback, and I got a score of 28. So I don't feel like I know what I needed to work on. I know that this is something that I've noticed in other lessons, that it takes me a bit longer to get to the point of what the problem is. And the whole lesson was adapted from as soon as we came out the test centre, literally 30 seconds to a minute about the test centre, and the whole lesson plan that I had in mind was out the window and changed. So I was chuffed with myself that didn't completely throw me off, but
yeah,
I didn't identify that need. Like she talked about it. She talked about how her speed was not giving her enough time and she wanted to get back and work on speed. So we started working on that and it was improving. But then as soon as a car would be at the mini roundabouts or roundabout, she'd just make the wrong decisions. And again, to start with, we thought it was the speed. So we started removing the speed element and working on that, which seemed to improve on the first loop because there wasn't much traffic. But on the second loop, when there was traffic, and the route increased in difficulty a bit due to her taking a wrong turn, and we had to go right turns on the roundabout rather than left. I then clicked in, hang on a minute, speed, even with going up to this slow, she's not making the right decisions. But at that point, I literally had like 3 minutes left on the way back up. And there was nowhere sort of to pull up on the way back to say, let's work on judgment. So then I sort of just brought it in the debrief. But the examiner had spotted it as we'd left the test centre, and he'd sort of he said he'd noted down sort of almost straight away that that's what he thought the issue was. He said I adapted well, but I just then needed to go into, it's not speed that's the problem. It's, you know, speed was an element obviously, but more the judgment side of it. But I just don't know how I, other than just experience and keep doing it, is there anything particularly I can work on to try and make sure I'm getting to the actual need quicker?
Just before I chuck it to Lee, at what point do you think the examiner knew that that was your learner's need?
I asked him this, so he said, do I have any questions? And I asked him, and he said, as we drove out of the car park, before we even got to the first mini roundabout, as she came out of the junction, she'd looked left and right, but she didn't slow down enough, she didn't stop enough. And again, I thought that was the speed. He said, but I saw there, she was looking, and the decision she made wasn't the right decision to not stop and look.
And knowing that that's, knowing that that's when the examiner knew, in hindsight now, do you think you could see that now, how that's its judgment, or do you still think it's speed?
I can see it now that he's pointed it out, but I don't think if I'd done the lesson again right now, like again, that I would have still wouldn't have noticed it straight away.
Okay, amazing. Lee, do you want to go first? Oh, sorry, Becky.
I was just going to say, I think I would have still thought about that junction as a speed problem on approach rather than judgment. So I don't think that was in my head as an option.
Got you. Go on, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should beat yourself up, because I think it's one of them things, and you mentioned experience. You've got more experience now because of that. You know, if your learner, I don't know, let's say your learner was following a sat nav, and this has happened to me actually. I've had a learner do this. They're following the sat nav. They were told to turn right. They've seen a side road on the right be the next right turn, and it were a one-way street. It were no entry, and they tried to turn up it, and they were crying all the way home. They were so upset. I failed my test, blah blah blah. And when we talked about, you know, is it better to do that today, or is it better to do that when you've got your loved ones in the back of the car, then they kind of thought, actually, I can learn from that. And it's not a problem. So it's kind of the same with you. You know, you've experienced it today. It's, you know, I had one very similar thing where I was out with someone a few weeks ago, and the mistake that his learner was making was diagnosed as bringing the clutch up too quick. So they were approaching junctions, and it was jerky every time they changed gear, and they were looking at that as, you know, you keep bringing your clutch up too quick, you need to bring it up slower. But actually what the learner was doing was they weren't braking, they weren't slowing down, so they were choosing the gear when they were far too fast for that gear, and that jerkiness feels exactly like the same jerkiness as it would be if you bring your clutch up too quick. And because that happened, they're now looking for that. They're now thinking, is it that they're bringing the clutch up too quick? Or is it like it was when Lee was here? Is it because that they're not braking? So I'm watching their feet now. You know, are they braking? Are they pressing that pedal before they press that pedal? So through that experience, then they've learned from that, you know? So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that ideally it would have been better for that whole scenario to play out when you were sat in the car with your trainer, and your trainer to have that conversation, and then it wouldn't have cost you all that money. But it now means that you're better now, and you won't always assume it's approach speed from today. So that's just made you a better instructor.
Yeah, I absolutely would agree with Lee. When you're watching your learner do whatever it is that they're going off to do, it's really important that we're kind of driving in our head how we would be doing stuff. And when your learner has looked and they've made this decision to go, and the examiner has said, well, at that point I knew that was the wrong decision, you need to kind of think that as well. You need to think, well, would I have gone here or not? And if you would, That's okay, as long as you know why you would have and you know how you would have. And if you wouldn't, you need to know why you wouldn't have and how you came to that decision that you wouldn't have. And that's the things that you would then have a conversation with your learner about. And then by asking them, how did you decide to go there? Or how did you decide not to go there? That's how you can know whether they've got knowledge and understanding on how to make that judgment.
That was
whether...
literally what I was about to say as well, Becky. Like, if you analyze that mistake and ask questions like, what were you thinking when that happened? You know, what was your thought process when you did that junction? And that's where you're going to get the answer that will then reveal what's causing it.
And Steve's just put a comment in saying, you know, it's easy to say now because he would have thought speed on approach too. But just asking them, you know, what they thought about the approach, might have identified it. Yeah, potentially. At that point, remember as well, you know, on every lesson, not just your part 3 or standards check, we don't want crappy things to happen. We want to prevent crappy things. So if we're driving in our head like we would approaching that mini roundabout, and you're thinking in your head, well, I'm not going here. I would have slowed down by now. I would have checked more to the right. I would have done this. I would have done that. And your learner's not done it. Let's intervene. Let's get it to go safe. And then when we can have a chat with them. And you know, so tell me your thoughts about that approach there. Tell me what you were thinking as you approached that. How were you coming to that decision that you were going to go or that you weren't going to go? And by asking them questions like that, you'll find out what the missing information is. And you know, if you get back from your learner, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking about my approach. I don't know what I was thinking about judgment. Just chuck it back at them and say, well, tell me what you do know about judging mini roundabouts. Tell me what you do know about approaching mini roundabouts. Because when they then tell you what they do know, you'll figure out what it is that they don't know, because they'll not give you the information that they don't know. Does that help, Becky? Have you got another one on hold?
I will be booking it later. Yeah. I did just in response to Steve. I did ask her, and she said, "Oh, I don't think I had enough time to make a decision. So next time I want to slow it down." So again, even in her mind, she was thinking speed's the problem. And that was the other thing that the examiner said, that I let it be a bit too client-led. Although it needs to be client-centered, I sort of let her do the lesson how she wanted to. I wanted to prompt her at one point, and she said, "Oh no, I think I can do it on my own." And he said I should have been a bit more strict on that bit. So there was obviously other bits as well, but yeah, she did also think it was the speed. So, but yeah, those questions are really good to help me develop that.
Good luck for your next one. Keep us informed. And if you need anything, you know where we are. Yeah, so we've got to 7:30. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I know there's more questions coming in, but I'm pretty sure we'll be back for a 5th session. What do you reckon, Lee?
Yeah, I think we should definitely do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. And everybody have a lovely Wednesday evening. This video will be available on the Empathetic Instructor Training Group tonight or tomorrow, depending on my computer, and we will see you all soon. Good luck for you guys that have got part 3s very, very soon. Good luck.
Good luck tomorrow. Bye bye.
Good night, everyone.